Hey, welcome to our series, Chasing the Wind, where we're learning lessons from the wisest man who ever lived. I hope that you will take a moment to check in with us no matter when you're watching this video, and that you'll join us for other sessions in this part one of our Ecclesiastes book study. Stay tuned to after this talk, and I'll have some more information for you there. But for now, enjoy this session of Chasing the Wind.
All right, good morning, everybody. So glad you guys could join us today in person and online as we continue down through the book of Ecclesiastes in the series we're calling Chasing the Wind. We're kind of like in the middle of this chasing series, and here's what might be happening to you. It's happened to me. You might be able to relate really well on one of these given weeks about one of these particular chasings, right? The things that the wisest man in the world went after to try to find meaning. And all of us probably have an area that we tend to, like, when we're drifting like into something and away from God, looking for meaning, we might tend to go that way. And so for you, it was like week number one where we're talking about chasing knowledge. You were like all there because you love to study, you love getting good grades. It was all about, answering questions and figuring out the why and the how-tos of life. And you were there, and maybe you were sitting there in that knowledge week going, this I don't get it, right? Not my thing. And then the next week, we went, maybe you don't chase knowledge, but maybe you chase pleasure for meaning. And you were all like, yeah, okay, that's where I'm at. Last week, we were talking about maybe chasing a career or finding your identity in what you do, right? And how that can be meaningless. And we've been talking through kind of these different chasings. And here's the big opportunity that we have. We can learn from the book of Ecclesiastes, from the wisest man who ever lived, right? What not to do, right? Where not to run after our meaning. Because if we go after anything without God, it is meaningless. It's like trying to grab smoke. Now, this week's topic, chasing time, is probably a little bit more universal. This is something where all of us will have some kind of connection to, oh yeah, that's me. We all land in this kind of area from time to time. If you have your journals, we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and we're going to go through all of Ecclesiastes chapter 3 today. And if you're a guest with us, man, I'm super excited for you to be here. We hope you got one of these Ecclesiastes journal. In just a moment, we'll be in page 14. This morning was one of those mornings where I was like, I think we could just keep on singing. Like, right? Let's just keep singing. Honestly, anytime you put Chris Tomlin in the song set, I'm ready to keep on singing, right? Like, that's my jam. And so we're ready to keep on singing. I'm looking forward to the worship night because the worship night, again, no really time constraints, just kind of sing and keep praising God and praying together. That worship night's going to kick off for us a season of prayer and fasting, 21 days of prayer and fasting, which is going to take us up to Easter. And so it's not too soon to talk about Easter weekend. We're really excited about Easter weekend, and we are going to have our Easter Sunday services, our Easter weekend services at Meredith Manor, the same place we did our Christmas Eve services. And we're really looking forward to it. Because of that, we're adjusting the times a little bit. We will be having a Saturday Easter Eve service that you can choose to go to, and 2 on Sunday morning, all at the Manor. We're going to get you more information about that as we get a little bit closer to the event. But here's 2 ways you can start thinking and praying. One, it's not too soon to start inviting people to Easter and letting them know, hey, there's a Saturday option, especially for people that aren't connected to church. The holiday, Sunday, can be pretty hectic, and trying to fit in a worship service may not work for them, but they could come Saturday. You could bring them Saturday, which would be amazing. So that's a cool opportunity. The second thing is your service team. If you would like to serve, it's all hands on deck that weekend. from everything from the behind the scenes to the parking to the tech to the worship to the setup and the cleanup and the teardown. If you're already on a team, your team leaders are already talking to you about your service schedule. Serve one, attend one, come Sunday morning, serve Saturday, or switch it around. Whatever it may be. Or if you're interested in like onboarding and saying, hey, I can help, I can be a part of the kids men team or the tech team, or I like music, or I can help with parking, whatever it may be, let us know on your check-in card that you're interested in serving, and we'll be in touch with you this week, and that'd be a great opportunity to onboard. So just praying about that. We traditionally have seen more people come to Easter and more people come to Christ at Easter than on Christmas Eve, and you all know that Christmas Eve was a big outreach for us. So very, very, very excited about Easter. As we jump into this morning's message, let's just pray together. God, we're here to hear from you. We thank you for the time that you have given us and the opportunity that we have to spend this time this morning worshiping you, glorifying you, connecting with one another, and praising you as one voice. Lord, we pray that you would speak directly into our hearts and our minds today. God, that you would transform us and mold us and help us to see your face a little bit clearer and to be more like you. In your precious and holy name we pray. Amen. Now, William Penn, right? I'm going to go all Pennsylvania on you here today. William Penn, who's on the top of our city hall down in Philly, said this: time is what we want the most, but it's what we use the worst. Time is what we want the most, right? We all want a little bit more time. Where did the day go? Where did the week go? Where did the year go, right? When did my kids grow up? How did that happen so fast? I don't know if you're like me. I'm not really a big food guy. I don't really care about food, but at the same time, I'll eat everything that's in front of me, kind of like that. I can get going in a day, and I can get kind of really into studying or really into a project or whatever might be happening, and I can get to 3 or 4 o'clock and all of a sudden be like, when was breakfast? Or where was lunch? What happened? How come I didn't eat that, right? That can happen to me, and I'd be like, oh, I wish I could get that time back because it didn't go according to plan. We all kind of feel that way on some days and on in other seasons of our lives. Time. Now, here's the big question. Has technology helped us in our use of time, or has it hurt us in our use of time? Because here's the theory, right? Technology, the more technologically advanced we get, the more that's supposed to help us save time. Let me give you for example. A big part of what I do in a week is I study. So I'm a studier. So I got to get this talk ready. I got to make sure that I'm fairly understanding and presenting the Word of God. And so I want to study and I want to look at all this stuff. Now, before the internet, I just dated myself, right? I remember when Al Gore invented the internet. I know when all that happened. And we had a time before the internet where in order to look up information, we had to go to a place called the library. Now, the library was a building that had books in it on shelves everywhere you went. And you had to figure out where the book was in the library. You had to go to this little card thing and look it up. There's no screens to touch. And you had to look at the cards, and you had to go find the aisle, get the book. And I'll tell you what, that takes a lot of time. How many of you remember that back in your college days, right? When you were doing those, you had to go to the library, and you had to find the book, and then you had to get to the page on the book, and you had to figure out where it was, and you had to make sure it was the right thing, and then that would tell you to go find another book, and that would tell you to go find another book, and sometimes those books would be in another library, in another building, in another place. And so you had to gather all these resources or buy them for yourselves and put them on your bookshelf, and that's how you studied. And now the internet has come along, and I can say to the artificial intelligence, I can say, dear Alexa Siri, if you would please tell me everything you can about Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and Alexa Siri will bring it up, and all of a sudden there is everything that you need that you used to have to travel hundreds of miles for and spend hours just to get to the right page on. Now my studying should go super fast, right? I don't have all that legwork to do, but for somehow, some way, it actually takes me longer, right, to study now that I have all this information at my fingertips. And here, again, here's the theory. What we all should do is we all should get one of these magic black bricks, and we should get one and put them in our pocket, and then this is going to enable us to save all kinds of time. Like, we're going to know where to go and how to get there. We're never going to get lost. We can answer any question we want anytime. We know where all our friends are at every time. We can stalk them on internet, Facebook, stuff pages, and watch what they're doing, right? And then we can make videos of what we're doing, and we can share that with you. We never have to have a conversation again, right? Now we know everything about everyone, everywhere, at all times, right? Technology is amazing. How many of us are saving time because of technology versus losing time because of technology? Let's just take a little poll. How many of you think technology is saving time? How many of you think technology is robbing time? Right? So, throw it away. You don't need it, right? This is my challenge to you. This is my challenge to myself. Disconnect from it. It apparently isn't helping. And we're not getting better at the use of time, William Penn. We're actually getting worse. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, right, in verse 1, the wisest man who ever lived said this. He said, for everything there's a season, and there's a time for every matter under heaven. He's going to talk to us in chapter 3 about time. He's going to talk to us about chapters. He's going to talk to us about seasons. And as he unfurls some wisdom for us in this area of time, here's kind of the lesson, and it's lesson number 5 from the wisest man who ever lived. You can't find more time, but you sure can lose it. You can't find more time. Nobody is inventing time. Nobody is creating more of it. You can't get more hours in a day. You can't get more minutes in an hour, right? You can't get more seconds in a minute. It's not possible to manufacture more time. We all get the same amount of time in a day. It's evenly distributed. No one gets a head start. No one gets less than the other person. We all get the same amount of time in a day. You're not going to be able to find more, but you sure can lose the time that you have. And so as we go over this idea today, our prayer, our heart is that we would take the gift of time that we've all been given and use it in the most effective way, the way that would glorify God as we pursue Him under heaven. James chapter 4, the brother of Jesus, says this: you don't know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? You are a mist. Same idea that we see in Ecclesiastes, a vapor, smoke. It appears for a little time and then vanishes. So let's jump into Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 may be the most famous chapter in all of the Bible because it has been made popular through song. So I have invited some special Bible readers to participate in the reading of the first part of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And let's give them a warm welcome and all of our attention. Todd, would you bring them in, please, for us today? This is Ecclesiastes chapter 3. We're going to be starting in verse 1. Just let it play for us as loud as you can. Here we go. This is the idea of the first verse. Feel free to bop along. You can sit dance if you want. That's verse 1. Verse 2. Verse 3. Skipped a line, but that's all right. All right, there it is. First made popular by the Byrds and then covered by the Beatles. This song, this song was lifted right out of the Old Testament, right out of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. For everything there is a time, for everything there is a season, for every matter under heaven. Look at these words for us again. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what's planted, right? So if you're a farmer, you understand that this is this seasonal thing. I'm not going to plant anything right now because the ground is frozen. But quickly, spring is coming. It'll be time to turn over the fields. It'll be time to plant. And then in the fall, we will pull up what was planted. We will harvest. There's a time to kill, and there's a time to heal. One of the saddest, I'm going to say one of the saddest days of my life, and you're going to judge me for this when I explain this. Some of the saddest days of my life has been to that moment, where when you, I know what I'm going to talk about. It's making me sad. You don't even know what I'm talking about. When your puppy, right, is not a little puppy anymore, and it's just been time. And you know that the pup is suffering and that the dog's lived this life, and you know that it's hurting, and you got to take it into the vet, and you got to go there because it's time. There's a time, right? And I'm a dog guy, and some of you guys are out there going, "It's a dog, man. Buckle up, Buttercup." And I'm like, yeah, but it's my pup and it's my thing. And for some reason, like every dog that I've ever loved, I'm the guy that's got to take it on the day to the thing because I'm the one that cares the most, right? And it scars me for life. But then I get another dog, right? Because it's time. It's time for a new one after the old one, right, has gone to dog heaven, and that's where dogs go. And then there's a time, sometimes you're going to take the dog to the vet, and you're going to take it there because it's time to heal. It's time for the dog to get better, and the vet's going to give it some medicine, or it's going to give it some surgery or some help. And again, be careful on how much you spend on animals, but that's a conversation for another day. And you're going to make the dog feel better because it's time for it to heal, right? There's a time to break down, and there's a time to build up. There's a time to weep, right? Like, this is sad when the dog goes. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn. And there's a time, and every Baptist said, there's a time to dance. There's a time to cast away stones and a time to gather them together. You can talk about David with that one before Goliath. There's a time to embrace and hug, and there's a time to refrain from embracing. Yeah, there is. There's a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away, to tear down, to sow, to be silent, to speak, to love, to hate. There's a time for war, and there's a time for peace. What we're going to see in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 is kind of three kind of big ideas. And again, these are healthy reminders for us in our theology of time. And in these first few verses, chapter 1 through 8, what the wisest man in the world is telling us simply this: chapters change. And that's okay. It is normal and good for our chapters to change. It is normal and good for us to have seasons in life. And there is no possible way that you can avoid the seasons of life. There's no possible way for you to get stuck in one chapter. Could you imagine picking up any one of these books and just having one giant book be one giant chapter where there's no cliffhanger, there's no plot twist, there's no change of scenery. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And sometimes we feel like, you know what, I would like everything to stay the same. I would like to go to an island where it's always 82 degrees, it's always sunny, the surf is always perfect, and I'm just going to hang out on this island. It would be perfect if I would go there. I never have to shovel snow. I never have to rake my leaves. I never have to put a warm jacket on, right? And so you move to this island where the temperature is always the same, the weather is always perfect, and you get on this island and you're there for about a couple of months, maybe a little bit longer, and you get there and it's just the same stupid, sunny island again and again and again and again. And you forget, like, some of you are like, no, I don't know, Josh. You're not convincing me. I've met people that have grown up on sunny islands, and we've brought them here to the beautiful Northeast. And they had never experienced this thing called snow. Have you ever seen someone who's never seen snow for the first time see snow? First of all, they're really cold, right? And they're like, I don't know how you people stay warm. And we're like, not that cold, and they're freezing. And you say, here, try this. And you give them a cup of hot chocolate. And they take the hot chocolate and they drink the hot chocolate, and it changes their lives forever, right? They're like, what is this miracle liquid that's causing warmth to go through my entire body, and it tastes amazing? You know what they don't drink in warm tropical islands? Hot chocolate. There's no reason to. You don't want it down there. You're already sweaty, right? But here, hot chocolate is a miracle and a gift from God. And then they see the snow start coming down. They want to go out and they just want to touch it, right? They just want to touch it in the air, and they want to see it if it goes in their mouth, and they watch the snow start stacking on top of each other. And it's just this beautiful, amazing, awesome experience that they get to see from God. Just drive through the Northeast, right, when it's peak leaf change season, right? People travel all over the world to come here to watch leaves die. Yeah, they love that, right? Because it's a change of season. Now, in our natural states, we believe, right, that everything should stay the same. If everything could stay the same, if nothing could change, then I will be truly okay. I'll be truly happy. And so we spend a lot of time, energy, effort, and emotion, anxiety on trying to keep everything the same instead of simply acknowledging that actually life is full of chapters. That there will be chapter after chapter and season after season, and that's actually okay, and it's actually a good thing. But why do we resist change so much? Do you know why? One word. Comfort. Comfort. When I experience something and when I'm in a season, I realize I understand this, I've experienced this. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. Remember what James said. I don't know what that chapter is going to be, if it's going to be good or better. Or so I want to stay. I don't want to move. I don't want to change. But here's the problem. You can't have growth without change. Growth is change, and change is growth. My daughter, if we would dare suggest that she rearrange her room, right? That would cause instant anxiety. But I like everything where it is, right? Like I know where my bed is, I know where my desk. And then if we buy something new, like a new desk, and we come in and we start to take away the old desk, she clings on it like it's her firstborn. No, don't take it. I love my desk. It's mine. It's precious to me. I'm like, that desk was bought at IKEA 20 years ago, right? It's literally been falling apart for 20 years. And we got you a nicer one and a newer one, and trust us, it's going to be better, but I like the old one, right? That's us. That's how all of us act in life. And what we're being reminded of is, hey, actually, life is seasons, and that's okay, and that's good. You don't want to get stuck in the same season. And this morning, we just want to recognize that all of us are in a season. All of us are in a chapter. All of us are in a unique moment in our lives, and some of you are there by design, right? You've set up your career, you've purchased the house, God's called you to be a part of our church, right? And you've decided about this season, and some of you are in the season you're in because it happened to you. There's been difficult seasons that we've walked teenagers and couples through because parents have gotten a divorce. There are seasons in life where you have a loved one live with you, and then that loved one passes away, and now you're in a season where you didn't think you'd be in that season because the deal was you were supposed to be together forever. Where you lose a parent, or you lose a job, or you lose a career, and it forces you to change your house or to move to a different place, right? And we all have these seasons, whether we're there or not. Listen, life is seasons. Life is chapters, and life does change, and that's okay. Because the second point that Solomon says to us in this continued conversation, starting in verse 9, is amazing. In verse 9, read this with me. He says, "What gain has a worker for his toil?" So what are we doing here anyway? I've seen the business that God has given the children of man to be busy with. I've seen all the seasons. And he has made everything beautiful, and here, circle this, in his what? Time. He makes all things beautiful in his time. Also, he has put, circle this, what's the next word? Eternity. That's a time phrase. He's put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceive that there's nothing better for them to do than be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in his toil. This is God's gift to man. And this was an idea that we talked about last week in our pursuit of work. I perceive that whatever God does endures, circle this next word, forever. That's another time term. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing can be taken away from it. God has done it, so the people fear him, fear before him, that which has already been, that which is to be, and already has been. And God seeks what has been driven away. What Solomon is pointing out to us in this second paragraph is this idea. God then is the author of our chapters. If chapters change, and that's okay, you need to know that it's okay because God is the author of our chapters. And by the way, that's a good thing. God's the author of our chapters, and that's the good thing. He is the one who is writing your story. He is the one who is the author of your story, and he's writing it from start to finish, and that's the way that it should be. Now, some of you are here going, no, that's not the way it should be. I should be the author of my story. I know me. I understand my mind. I understand my feelings. I understand my heart. I know where I've been. I know where I'm going. And so I should be the one that writes the story. I nominate myself to be in control. Anyone there? Right? Anyone thought that ever? Like your job is to write your story. Your job is to write your chapters. Your job is to finish your book. And what we're being reminded of in this moment is, no, God is the one who writes our story. And by the way, you much rather would have God writing your story than you writing your story. I can only know what I know. Now, I know that's a duh statement, right? I only know what I know. You write all that down. That's really powerful. I only know what I know. Like, good. I only know what I know. Here's what I mean by that. I know what's happening in this room right now. We're here together and we're worshiping. Will is falling asleep in the front row. Right? I know that. I can see it taking place, and just for the record, that's not an example. You don't get $3. We are experiencing this together. So we all know what's happening in this room. Now, there are millions and millions and millions of people who are a part of other churches who are also gathering on this Sunday morning. And they're gathering in auditoriums and shops and church buildings all over the world. And they're worshiping right now. And I have no idea what's happening in those buildings. I have no idea what's happening in those worship services. I'm not there. I can't see it. I can't experience it. But here's what I know. God is in every single one of those worship services. He's in every single one of those rooms. He's hearing every single one of those songs. He's hearing every single one of those prayers. God is present everywhere right now where 2 or 3 are gathered. God is there. And God has been to every worship service that has ever been, and He will be to every worship service that will ever be. God has been before us. He is with us now, above us, behind us, in front of us, and behind us, and around us, and He will be forever. That's who God is. He has such a broader understanding and a greater knowledge and wisdom than any of you and I could ever even fathom or grasp. He is the one who has put eternity, right, from this passage. He's put eternity in our hearts, and we can't know what God has done from beginning to the end. That's why He's the one that should be writing the book, not me. And when God writes the book, right, when God writes our story, He's writing a story that's connected with the entire story of all of humanity. I am just a small part of the big story that God is writing. And the question that you should ask, and the question that may be coming up is simply this. If God's so knowledgeable, and God's such a great story writer, then why is there so much pain in my story? Why is there cancer? Why is there death? Why are there veterinarians that kill puppies, right? Why is there war, and why is there disease, and why is there all of this heartbreak and burden in our world? If God was a good story writer, He shouldn't have written those things in the story. So therefore, some will conclude that God is not writing the story. But when we get to that conclusion, we forget 2 things. One, God wrote a story where you and I are free. God did not break the world. We did. So we, the children of God, have invited brokenness into the story. And now God is spending all of His goodness, His grace, power to restore what was broken, and that's taking a season. That's taking a chapter. God so loved the world, the broken world, that he gave his only son, that whosoever believes in him would not perish, right, free from death and sin, but have, here's a time turn, everlasting, right, that's forever, life. You see, God is in the business of writing this amazing story of the world, and he's invited your story to become a part of it. God is the author, and that's a good thing. Time, then, as we see in these verses, is a gift from God. Every day that we have is a gift from God. Every breath that we breathe is a gift from God. The life that we get to enjoy, the hot chocolate that we drink, the snow that we sled on, the beach where we get warm, all of those things are a gift from God. The love in our lives, the words that we hear, the songs that we sing, each of these is a gift of God. This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Why? Because I'm here. I've got time that he's given me. And we get what we get. No more and no less. Of course, we like to argue with God about this one too. When a brother-in-law passes at the age of 43 from cancer, leaving 6 kids behind, I have a bone to pick with God, right? Like, I feel like he should have gotten more, what? Time. But what we forget is every second that he had, every one of those 43 years was a gift. It was a gift. He had time. He had life. He had love. He had sun and snow and all the beauties of this world. And none of us know if we have many days or just a few days. But whatever days we have, those days are a gift. We never know when the chapter's going to change, when the season's going to change, when it's going to be all of a sudden different. But we do know that God is the author of those changes. And so what we understand that God's the chapter, man, that brings us an ability, right, to have some incredible confidence. Now, as we finish out this chapter, right, I think on page 16, read in verse 16, it says this, "Moreover, I saw under the sun in a place of justice, and even there was wickedness." In other words, Solomon was asking the same question. Why is there pain? Why is there suffering? Why is there wickedness? Which, by the way, those are great questions to ask. I'm not upset that we're asking those questions. It's not bad to ask God those questions. But what matters is that we remember our position before God. That he's the author and there's a bigger story. And so I may not understand it fully and completely. And so he says, in the place of righteousness there was wickedness. Verse 17, I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked. For there is a time for every matter and for every work. In other words, in the seasons that are lined up for us, God will judge the unrighteous. God will judge the murderers, right? God will judge the impure and the bad that is happening. That season is coming. Verse 18, I said in my heart with regard to the children of man that God is testing them, that they may see themselves, that they themselves are but animals. Wait a minute. Well, he just got real dark here. Verse 19, for what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts are the same. Okay, there's a little hyperbole happening in this moment, but he's making a point. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath. A man has no advantage over the beast, for it's all vanity. All go to one place. All, and here's a key phrase, are from dust, and to dust all will return. He's making this point that just like the animals, right, you and I, we have this set season, and we will go from dust to dust. We will go from birth to life, and there's no getting out of that. There's no changing that. There's no undoing that. There's no extending that. There's no shortening that. You can't add to it. You can't take it away. In other words, we all have an assigned amount of time, and we're not going to find more, but we sure can lose the time that we have. And it's true, like the animals, like the beasts of the air, right? We all come from dust and we will all go to dust. That's true. Verse 21. Here's some very important questions. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of beast goes down into the earth? What happens to our spirit after we die? What happens to the spirit of an animal after it dies? Well, I happen to know that all dogs go to heaven. That's 100% true. Where cats go, I don't know, right? Verse 22. So I saw that there is nothing better than a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. And here's another key question. Who can bring him to see what will be after him? Who can bring him to see what will be after? What Solomon has done is he's talked about the time that we have from dust to dust. And he started to insert some very important ideas into our thinking. Ideas like we have seasons. Ideas like God is the author of our seasons and that our time is a gift. And he said along the way, I want you to remember and think about God is the one, if he does it, it's going to last forever. God is the one who puts eternity in our hearts. God is the one who makes all things beautiful in his time. There is a time that's apart from our time that we need to understand. And he asks himself this closing question and the chasing of time. What will be after? What will be after? What an important question to ask. When we've gone from dust to dust, what will come after? And what Solomon didn't have, that we have, is we have the teaching of Jesus. You see, Solomon is looking forward to the Messiah. We now look back to the Messiah. We know, right, that Jesus came and that he was born, that when he was born and when he lived his life, he fulfilled all kinds of prophecies, hundreds of them. Who can do that? He did all kinds of miracles, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of them, that none of us could ever do. That he lived a sinless life because he was born of a virgin. He didn't carry sin in his body. None of us can say that. He died on a cross. And then here's the kicker. He rose again from the dead. He beat death. He died, and then he was alive again. And so if I'm going to ask myself, if I'm going to ask somebody to tell me what happens after we die, what happens at the end of time, I'm going to go with the guy that died and rose again. I want to hear his answer. I want to hear his explanation. I want to understand what he says, not the person who fainted and wrote a book about what they saw. Not the people that have never died and come back again, right? Like, I don't need to hear from other people who are just as limited as me. I need to hear from someone who is God, who is connected to God, who is part of the plan of God, and Jesus is that person. So what does Jesus teach about what comes after? Well, the author of Hebrews tells us this: just as it's appointed unto man once to die, after that, right, so he's going to answer this exact question, after that comes judgment. After our death, that's the season of judgment. There's a season for everything. There's a chapter for everything. And our lives, what we have done on this earth, in this time that we have, will be judged. I don't know if that's terrifying or comforting to you. That God is watching. That God is recording. That God is keeping a record. And that record will be on display. And the judgment for every single one of us, we already know, is guilty. We are guilty. We are sinful. We are wasters of this precious gift called time. We do and say things that displease God. And we are guilty of being sinners. and sin cannot enter into the presence of God. So Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, here's the good news, right? Jesus' death on the cross gives us the ability to have our penalty paid for. Our guilt can be lifted. It's put on him, and the wrath of God is satisfied in the death of Jesus. Jesus came to solve our guilt problem. He came to solve our sin problem. He came so that we could have life everlasting, so that we could be restored. That's the story that God is writing. And when you put your faith and trust in Jesus to save you, nothing else, right? Your sins are forgiven and you will have life everlasting. For God so loved the world that he gave his son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. Have you put your faith and trust in Jesus? Because Jesus, having been offered once to bear the sins of many on the cross, will appear a second time. Not to deal with sin. He's already done that. Sin's already been dealt with. He will appear a second time to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. What will happen after? Jesus is coming again. Jesus is coming back. He will return, and he will return to save those, to bring those who are eagerly awaiting him, for those that are trusting in him, into his presence. Now, when will Jesus come back? Well, it's clear from Matthew 24 that concerning the day and time, nobody knows. So if somebody says they know when the end of the world is going to be, they don't know, right? Stop it. Don't believe them. Run away from them. They're wrong. Nobody can know when Jesus is going to return. Nobody knows when the last day is coming. For just like in the days of Noah, they're out minding their own business, living their own lives, doing their own thing, and all of a sudden the floods came and it caught them all by surprise. So it will be with the coming of man. So in light of this, what should we do? Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day the Lord is coming. Therefore, you also must be ready. For the Son of Man is coming at a time that you do not expect. Are you ready for Jesus to return? Are you ready to see his face? Are you anticipating that he could come back at any moment and you would be excited and delighted to suddenly be in his presence? Because today could be the day, today could be the day our time is up. It could be tomorrow. It could be a week, a year from now. That moment, that next chapter is in God's hands. And here's when our next chapter, our last chapter, our most important chapter starts. Because our last chapter is not retirement, right? Our last chapter is eternity. It's the longest and the most important chapter. But so many of us are living for this chapter, and we're not living in light of the most important chapter. Our last chapter starts the moment we see Jesus face to face. Our last chapter starts the moment we see Jesus face to face. And there's two ways we're going to see Jesus face to face. One, when we pass away, when our eyes close on this earth and they open in heaven. Or two, when Jesus comes back again. That's going to be the start of our next chapter, our last chapter. Are you ready? Are you ready to see Jesus face to face? The first and most important step of being ready is making sure that you have set your soul in Jesus' hands. That you have accepted Jesus' offer of salvation. Not something that you can work for, not something that you can hope for, but something that you can receive from him. Have you put your life in Jesus' hands? Have you given him your heart and your soul? Have you accepted the free gift of salvation? If you're not sure if you're saved, if you're not ready to see Jesus, if you don't know if heaven is your home after you die, well then in this very moment, I want you to bow your heart and have a conversation with Jesus and say, God, I'm sorry that I've sinned. I believe Jesus died and rose on the cross for me so that I could have eternal life. Today, I want to accept the free gift of salvation. Today, I want to follow Jesus. If you are ready to accept Jesus, to have that conversation with him, have that conversation now. Go to our website when you have a free moment later today and think that through. Come up and talk to our prayer team after, but don't wait. Get this issue settled. And then if you are a believer in Jesus, I want you to think about these three questions that are connected to our discussion about time today. And question number one is simply this: are you thankful to God for this season? Are you thankful to God for this season? Whatever season you find yourself in. Because God makes all things beautiful in His time. Now here's my difficulty, right? I'm always thinking about the next season. God's called me to be a leader, right? To be a pastor. And so I want to think about what's next, and I want to think about where we're going and how we're going to get there. Where are my kids going to go to college, and what are they going to do with the rest of their lives, and how can we set that up for the future? And what happens when you're always thinking about the future is you fail to be present in the present. And even now, I can be thinking about the next message instead of just enjoying this one. Last Sunday morning was our biggest non-holiday Sunday ever here at Branch Life Church. All in, including online, we had well over 500 people who joined us for worship. That was amazing. And some of you guys gave up your seats in this service so that, and you went and sat in the overflow area just so that new guests could enjoy being in the auditorium. Thank you for doing that. Do you know what my mind was doing when that was happening? Where are we going to get a bigger room, right? Like, we got to do something about this. We got to fix the parking lot. We got to make sure there's more kid space. And we got to be, and you know what God's saying to me? Josh, did you just enjoy worshiping with 500 people? Did you just enjoy having a day together where we all got to see Jesus' work and see Jesus' face together? Did you just enjoy the moment and the songs that you were singing then and the opportunity that you have? Did you just enjoy this season? It's a gift. God has given you this gift. And every day I look up and I say, how did my kids get so big so fast? Why am I pushing for them to get bigger, better colleges and more careers? Can I just enjoy being with them today? And is my tech taking me away from being a part of the present that God has for me now? Are you enjoying this season? Maybe it's a season of pain. Maybe it's a season of heartache. Maybe it's a season of brokenness. Can I say to you, it's just a season? That God will bring you into the next season in His time, and He will make all things beautiful in His time. Can you thank God even for this painful season? He's got a purpose for it. The second part of this question is this: am I ready? Am I ready to see Jesus? Because we don't know if He's coming back, when He's coming back. Are you ready now? Are you living for Jesus now? Are you all in for Jesus today? Don't wait for tomorrow to get ready for Jesus. And then thirdly, are you making the best use of your time? Are you making the best use of your time? Are we wasting it? Are we losing it? Are you using it for the thing that God has called us to use it for? And listen to this, and we'll close with it. Look carefully then how not as unwise, don't be foolish, don't be sinful, but as wise, making the best use of your time, because the days are evil. Therefore, don't be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Well, then what is the will of the Lord? At the same time, pray also that God may open for us a door for the word to declare the mystery of Christ. Walk in wisdom towards outsiders, making the best use of the time. What does God want me to do? Go into all the world and make disciples. God wants you to walk towards people that don't know Jesus, to love them in the name of Jesus, to pray for them, to invest in them, to invite them into a relationship with God. Because if you're ready for Jesus, that's awesome. Help somebody who's not. Help them know that they can trust and love and follow Jesus, that there's only so much time that we have left. There's only so much time that we have left. And so who is your one that you're praying for? Who's the one more that you want to see come to Christ, that you are begging that God would allow you to be a part of their story of salvation? And then, man, we love when we see you guys get to baptize people that you've been a part of their spiritual journey closer to God. Let's pray and ask God to help us today reach more people for Jesus. And C.S. Lewis said this: the Christian who did the most for the present world were just those who thought the most of the next. Do you want to do something amazing for God with your life? Think of eternity. Think in light of eternity. In this time that we have, most of us think about this little time that represents our birth to our death. But what God said is, what I have for you is so much more than this chapter. I have a chapter of eternity that will go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Live in light of that. C.S. Lewis's friend said this through his buddy Gandalf. All we have to decide is what we do with the time that God has given us. Lord, as we think about time today, would you help us to be faithful in using this gift of time that you've given us? God, help us to enjoy the season we're in. Help us to be always ready for your return. And God, come quick. But before you do, Lord, would you allow me to reach more people for Jesus that need to hear from you before it's too late? Bring them to Christ. God, bring them to Jesus. So we offer ourselves to you. We offer our days to you and our time to you. As the worship team sings, you can fill out your check-in cards, worship, talk to God. But just seal in your heart in these moments whatever the Spirit is saying to you.
Like the frost on a rose, winter comes for us all. Oh, how nature acquaints us with a nature of patience. Like a seed in the snow, I've been buried to grow. For your promise is loyal, from sea to sequoia. And I know, though the winter is long, even richer, the harvest it brings. Though my waiting prolongs, even greater, your promise for me like a seed. I believe that my season will come. Lord, I think of your love like the long winter sun. And as I gaze, I am blinded in the light of your brightness. Like a fire to the snow, I'm renewed in your hope. Melt the ice of this wild soul till the barren is beautiful. And I know, though the winter is long, even richer, the harvest it brings. Though my waiting prolongs, even greater, your promise for me like a seed. I believe that my season will come. I can see the promise, I can see the future, 'cause you're the God of seasons, and I'm just in the winter. If all I know of harvest is that it's worth my patience, then if you're not done working, God, I'm not done waiting. You can see my promise, even in the winter, 'cause you're the God of greatness, even in the manger. For all I know of seasons is that you take your time. You could have saved us in a second. Instead, you said, child. Your promise for me like a seed. I believe that my season will come. Like a seed in the sun, for the sake of us all. From Bethlehem's soil grew Calvary's sequoia.
Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Chasing the Wind. Join us next time as we continue in our Ecclesiastes book study together and learn more life lessons from the wisest man who ever lived. I would love for you to check in with us before you go. You can find that in the link in the chat or go to branchlife.church, and at the bottom of our homepage, it'll say weekly check-in. We'd love to hear from you. Join us again next time as we continue in our series called Chasing the Wind.